Have you ever thought to yourself, man, it's just really tough building a culture, maintaining a culture. It's so hard to visualize putting a company together that has a great culture and has great employees, and everything seems to be, running on all cylinders, and there seems to be no worries or cares in the world. Well, today we're going to talk about how to identify culture and then also how to implement and maintain culture. So get ready. We're going to go take a walk and talk about culture. So the first part of establishing and building your culture is obviously to know where you're aiming. You got to know the target, what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish. And so to do that, you really have to establish your culture, what's important to you, what your core values are. So core values are the things that will move you to actually be able to implement and sustain the culture that you're looking for. So here's one example of something you can do to help you establish that culture. You've got to think about what things are most important to you. And in order to do that, there's a little exercise you can do. Think about your best server. What are the qualities that server has that makes them the best server? Now think about your best host and write down the qualities that best defines why that host is so great. Then do the same thing with each department. Do it with your kitchen staff, do it with your busser, your management team. And then what you need to do, once you've accomplished that, you need to look back through your list of what it is about each of those key employees that makes you rate them at the top. Look for consistencies. You might see that all of those employees show up on time and are responsible. That may be one of your core strategies to building culture is having a team of people that are responsible and dependable. You may see that they're all great with the guest. Hospitality may be part of your key core culture. You may see teamwork. All of these people get along well with the team and they all help each other out. That may be a core principle for your culture building. So the best thing to do is really establish what that list is, what that looks like, by looking at your best people and determining why you rate them at the best, and then writing those things down, and then coming up with your core list of things that are most important to you, your core strategies. Once you've done that, then what you need to do is write out in more paragraph form. So you've got bullet points of the things that are core values for you, and then you can write out in a paragraph form or multiple paragraph forms how that's going to be implemented into a culture. What does your culture look like by using those core strategies, those core values? And once you do that, then what you can do is you can kind of create an elevator pitch, a quick short few sentences that really describe your culture, and that may become your mission statement. By being able to write down your core values, establishing your culture, and creating a mission statement, you now have a target to shoot for, and the next step is how you implement that. Okay, so how do you implement? First thing you need to do is you need to start off with yourself. You as the leader need to make sure that you're modeling what you're asking other people to do. Everyone has amazing mission statements. They have, amazing core values. Very few companies actually deliver on those. Sometimes that's it's always a leadership thing. Sometimes that is a lack of leading by the leader. Do as I say, not as I do. And for us to really build culture, we've got to model that. We've got to live it, breathe it. It should be an extension of our own very own personalities and leadership style. And so that's the first thing. The next area is really to hire people with those qualities. If you're looking for hospitality as a key component of your culture, then you need to hire people that are hospitable. If you're looking for responsible team members, then you need to look for people that are responsible. And so basically what you're doing is you're hiring people that fit your culture. I'm going to talk a little bit about a football analogy. My 49ers have kind of created the whole West Coast offense. They're doing a lot of short passes, short screens, things like that. And when they get a quarterback, they don't look for a quarterback that necessarily can throw the ball 80 yards down the field, because that's not their offense. They have a system, they have a culture, and then they look for players to fit into that. So that's really the first two steps of establishing culture. One is to model it yourselves, and number two is to find the right people that exude what you're already trying to build. All right, so I listened to this amazing podcast on entrepreneurship, where basically it's a EntreLeader podcast, and basically it's a Dave Ramsey podcast, and what they talk about is different aspects of leadership. And I heard this really great explanation of culture that I just wanted to kind of borrow and share with you as it illustrates what we're already talking about. So the word culture that word culture is also in the word agriculture, which is the culture of the ground, of farming. And so let's just kind of use that analogy for a minute. You've got the employee that you've hired that is exuding the different things that you want to do. And again, the reason why you want to hire someone that already has that is because that's a lot harder to teach than it is to teach skill sets. So you want to hire the people that already have those particular characteristics. We're going to call, in this agriculture model, we're going to call the employee the seed, okay? So we're going to take that seed, we're going to plant it in fertile soil, rich, soil structure and composition that will allow the seed to grow. And that soil is your culture that you have already, put in place. So you take the new employee, the seed, and you plant it in the culture, in the soil, and the next thing you do is, as everyone knows that's had a garden, is you have to water it. So we're going to talk about water and sunlight right now. So water is like training. You can bring in this great employee. You can have this culture, this certain dynamic of your business. But if you don't train people correctly, you may not be properly communicating that expectation. You also may not be fully setting them up for success. So training is super important. We tend to skip over that. We find reasons to shorten someone's training. We find reasons to cut corners, whether it's we're in a hurry to get someone up to speed because we've not proactively hired, or potentially We're trying to save a buck, but it really behooves us to properly train these people. So that's kind of like watering the seed, right? You're helping it grow, and being able to do online and ongoing training will help that seed, that teammate, continue to grow. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is, if you're talking about this agriculture model, is sunlight. And in this podcast I listened to, they liken sunlight as recognition, acknowledgement, acknowledging your people when they do a great job, pointing out the behaviors that people are doing that model and reflect your culture. And by doing that, you reinforce how important those core values are to you and to the company. And it also encourages growth. You've got the sun, that causes growth in plants, and you've got this recognition that causes your people to want to keep doing what they're doing. And so those are the first four components of this. We've got the seed, we have the soil or the culture, we have the watering of the plant, which is the training, we have the sunlight, which is the acknowledgement, recognition, and then number 5, you can't allow anything toxic inside your building. Things that are disrupting your culture need to change quickly. There's a couple things. Obviously, the most obvious is you've got a toxic employee that is negative and not willing to do the things required to execute on your core values and your mission statement and your culture building. So those people obviously need a certain amount of time to willingly adapt, but if they don't, you got to pull the weeds. You can't allow the healthy plants to grow up with the weeds, because the weeds actually will go deeper in the soil and will suck all the water, not allowing the other plants to get the training that they need. Also, they tend to grow up taller than certain plants, and so they might be blocking out the sunlight. They might be blocking out the recognition. The constant negativity eradicates the positive nature of acknowledging people. And so here you take your seed, your employee, you put them in a culture that you've created, the soil, you water them, train them, you provide sunlight, recognition, acknowledgement, and then you pull the weeds to make sure that they don't overtake your culture. Another thing that's less obvious when it comes to making sure that your culture stays intact is you might have good employees that you brought in from the outside, but if you bring in too many of them in a short period of time, they're bringing in, their experiences, their culture, and if you're not careful, your culture can shift very quickly because you've brought in a ton of people that didn't grow up in your culture and aren't as in tune with what you're trying to do. So the two areas for making sure that you don't have weeds in your culture is to pull the weeds, don't allow toxic employees, and then also, if you're bringing in people from the outside, be careful about how many people you're hiring from the outside versus promoting from within, because those people that are already in the culture already understand it better, and you're less likely to get a culture shift. So those are my thoughts on culture, developing a culture, and then also building a culture. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, go up and listen to some of my other videos, and I'll catch you on the next trail.